Now, the flower of life, it's very, very old. The concept is very old. What was the origin of the concept?
It's the oldest symbol known to mankind. It's believed that it was Anki, the brother of Enlil, if you go by the Emerald
Sumerian
tablets.
text.
The Sumerian text. Why don't you just take the pieces that make up the flower and put them together based on universal ratios? So this is the juxtapose of the mistake they made. I took 4 of those triangles, and wow. And you can scroll around. This is what happens when 4 bubbles meet. This is the negative space where they can't touch each other. This is hydrogen. And as I was saying, electricity is always trying to get to the center of that triangle, but it gets pushed out. And now you see it has 4 contractive poles, which is the electric poles. It has 4 contractive poles because electricity is seeking a higher pressure condition and forcing it in, where magnetism is seeking a lower pressure condition and spun out. So the vortices, those tips, that's the magnetic field. That's where they begin. But it has an equal attractor and an equal amount of repulsion. So if you go to what happens when 8 bubbles meet, they gave me the patents to that. I called that the tetrient. So
this is the negative space in between 8 bubbles.
8 bubbles. This is a negative space where 8 bubbles meet, and you can scroll around.
And this is ignored when they're concentrating on straight lines.
Completely, because this, if you look from the top, I haven't violated anything. It fits perfectly inside of there. This is the negative space where 8 bubbles meet, but you'll notice it has 8 contractive poles, but it only has 6 magnetic poles, 6 vortices, so it has a greater electrical potential than a repulsion. So maybe this is the strong nuclear force, and the previous one was the weak nuclear force. I called this the Huntian after my son. So I was like, what happens when 6 bubbles meet? Now you see that it has these huge bubbles, fast moving, but there's 6 strong spheres that's going around this, but the greater attractor has grabbed the 2 weaker attractors. And this looks just like a photon, and guess what? It has 30 poles. This looks like what happens in nature. So I was like, okay, so they gave me the patents to this, but you'll see that there's 6 unaccounted electrical poles to it. So I was like, what happens when 12 bubbles meet? Another stable structure that we basically see in nature, but there's 4 unaccounted electrical poles to it. 4 spin around it. You can count those 4. You'll see 1 at the bottom and 3 on those sides. This is the basis of crystallization, the laws of crystallization that formed. When I was like, what happens when 24 bubbles meet? This is the negative space. If you pull to a horizontal on it, this is a negative space where 24 bubbles meet. This is where you cannot distinguish this from the background because all of the electrical potential has been accounted for. This would be the Bose-Einstein condensate, where something becomes indistinguishable from the fabric of space itself, the final state of matter. And the proof of this, the platonic solids, they have a thing called discrete symmetry. You can put the cubes together, maybe you can put the dodecahedrons together, but you can't put all of them together. But you can take the wave conjugations right here, and they form supersymmetrical systems, where everything aligns.